Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Celtic Way, and it's the post-match reaction. Celtic 0, Hearts 2. Scoreline says it all. And the headline on it, the toxicity levels rise as Rodgers' men flop again. Ryan, they got out of jail at McDermott Park, didn't get out of jail at Rugby Park, and were absolutely brutal against Hearts today. There's no defending that. The manager apologised to the supporters, and quite rightly. He's not entirely blameless, but that performance today is utterly unacceptable. You were there. There was chance of sack the board. Takes me back to the 90s, the Celtic dad that I am. By the way, I'm Tony Haggerty, at Haggerty10 on the Twitter or X handle. And I'm joined by...
as a Celtic dad.
and I'm joined by Ryan McGinley, the Ryan McGinley, who's somewhere outside Celtic Park, to talk the post-mortem, to go over it with a fine-tooth comb. Ryan, where do you start? Where do you start with that today?
You start with the feeling that I had before the game, when my feeling was recognised and my feeling was vindicated with the performance and result today. I had a bad feeling when I seen that team come out.
You did.
And I didn't want to be overly negative, and I like being the positive one. I like bringing positive vibes with regard to Celtic and everything to do with them. But I had a bad feeling about today. I was like, if Hearts fancy it today, if they fancy sticking in and taking their chances when they come to them, or when the chances come their way, then they've got a chance here, because Celtic are brittle at the moment. Celtic are weak. Even a dead rubber game during the week against Feyenoord, as good as it was, does not solve the problems that we have, that Celtic have domestically when they come up against a team that want to fight and give more. It's a prerequisite. Hard work and effort is a prerequisite, and it shouldn't take Daizen Maeda to come on at half time for a bit of hard work to be shown. Yes, he wasn't blameless, because sometimes he's got a first touch that looks as if he's never touched the ball before. But at least he was given dig and endeavour.
Is that the stock phrase, touch like an elephant, as they say sometimes, Ryan, when
absolutely.
they refer to football players? But I tell you, when I had a bad feeling, Ryan, as soon as Stephen Kingsley planted the ball past Joe Hart, a la Lee Griffiths-like at Hampden in 2017.
Stunning goal. Stunning goal.
Great free kick, good strike. Could Hart have been positioned better, maybe nitpicking at that, but never thought it was a free kick either. Poor decision by Kevin Clancy. That's another by the by. But I knew then the game was finished. Half an hour of a home Scottish Premiership game against Hearts. I just didn't see Celtic coming back into that. Normally you would expect to create chances, pummel Hearts. It just didn't happen. And you, as I say, you were there, the sack the board chance, the toxic nature of the atmosphere inside the stadium. You were texting me back and forth and saying there is no atmosphere. Then you said change that. It's gone a bit toxic. Was it that bad? Yeah.
Yeah, it was. Anybody that wasn't at the game that's hearing about it and maybe wondering how the game went with regard to the fans, it was toxic. It was completely toxic from start to finish. It's toxic due to the fact that there's no atmosphere whatsoever. The Green Brigade and the boys being away means that there is no atmosphere out with maybe a couple of chants. There was a stand-up for the champions that started to happen. It only made its way halfway across the stadium, because the other half just couldn't bother doing it whatsoever. It was at that point that you're like, Celtic are fighting a losing battle here, because the crowd weren't up for it. It didn't help that they conceded an early goal through Lawrence Shankland, who always seems to be scoring against Celtic at the moment. And once, to be honest with you, and it's terrible to say this, that after the first goal went in, you knew Celtic weren't coming back from it. There was fight. Last season there was fight and drive and endeavour from the players under Ange Postecoglou. All that fight's been stripped away. And yes, I can blame the board. I can blame the board and the recruitment. I can blame Mark Lawwell. I think his position is untenable at this point in time, given the failures that he has committed with regard to players coming into the club. 5 out of the 9 players weren't even mentioned. One weren't even mentioned in the squad whatsoever, starting or subs. One of them I think it was one of them that started, which was Palmer, who was non-existent today. He endeavoured, he did try, but nothing came off for him. And I think just the biggest kick in the teeth was the fact that he was taken off and Alexandro Bernabeu was taken on. That's when I knew that desperation stations had been hit by Brendan Rodgers.
If you're saying that Lewis Palmer was non-existent, Mikey Johnson was worse than him.
He was a man down today, unfortunately. But I can't be angry at Mikey Johnson because I'm sorry to cut you off. I'm sorry, but it just needs to be said. I feel sorry for Mikey Johnson in this team. He shouldn't be in this position. He shouldn't be starting games for Celtic. We've made that point for weeks, Tony, and he's been starting games and making minimal impact. He shouldn't be starting for Celtic.
He shouldn't be at the club. I've got to be honest. I think this is the death throes of Mikey Johnson's Celtic career. I'd be surprised. Yeah, correct, and he's not alone. And again, the manager has to sort of answer the question on that. Why didn't start Dyson, Maida? Chilpel coming in. You guys need to stop supporting Mikey. He needs to leave. I'm not supporting him. I have been saying for long and weary, I knew Mikey Johnson wasn't going to cut it at Celtic for years, so I feel vindicated by that. Today's just, I think, the death knell and the death throes of a player who's just not good enough for Celtic. And so, but again, as Ryan said there, he's not alone. And the manager apologising and saying he's responsible for the result. Yeah, he is largely responsible for.
I think most of the blame goes on Brendan Rodgers today. For me.
And he's not exempt from criticism or blame. Social media, as it does, people want him sacked, want him out the door. Ryan, Stephen Mitchell, Tony's MD's biggest critic. He's awful. I've been saying it for a long time. I don't have a downer on Mikey Johnson. I just think I'd like to know a player, or I can spot a player when I see one, and I just never ever thought he was cut out to be a Celtic player. I don't take any pleasure in saying that, but today confirmed to me what a lot of the majority of Celtic supporters have known for years, that he probably shouldn't be there. He's in the wrong movie at this moment in time.
I can't remember the last time he played well.
I know you like Palmer, but Palmer as well has been rotten for not just one or two games. That's a good few games in a row. I know he scored a penalty recently and stuff like that, but you need players to contribute, especially players in that position. And then you talk about Kyogo. I wrote in the instant analysis piece, if you want to say that, the Kyogo conundrum. He touched the ball 4 times in the first half. Well, Celtic has 73% possession. Then he's missed a chance in the second half. And, there's a whole malaise there. Said to you, at the start about, and I've said it again, about something being rotten in the state of Denmark. It's not just rotten, it's absolutely stinking now, to be honest, Ryan. And there's something afoot here, isn't there? And I know the manager said at the start of the season when he was unveiled, I'm here for 3 years unless I get binned. I don't know if he'll be binned by the board, but would he do the unthinkable and terminado his own contract? Because
I don't think that's unthinkable. I've got to be perfectly honest with you. I don't think it's unthinkable at this point in time.
Because he said the first time he's issued an apology in his first tenure there, and then his tenure just now. He said at McDermott Park it's the first time he's ever had to rip into his players like the way he did. As I say, Celtic out of jail at McDermott Park. He would have ripped into them after Rugby Park, and no doubt he'll have had to rip into them again after today, and then come out and there's something not right, is there, at this football club at this moment in time? And until certain people are going to come out and let you know, then there's going to be wild speculation and people saying they want shot at the manager, they want to sack the board and stuff like that. But you're sort of watching the season that shall not be named, and a repeat of that, aren't you?
Lennon had more points at this stage.
Yeah, but you're slowly watching it again, aren't you? And you're thinking, have no lessons been learned? No. bundled out the League Cup at the first time of asking. An 8-point lead has all but evaporated. And, and performances that are just absolutely dreadful. Absolutely dreadful. And
they're disgraceful performances.
Yeah,
they are
unacceptable, and it's not a sense of being entitled to it or anything like that. They're just unacceptable for a Celtic team. And if the manager's saying that, then it's his job to motivate and inspire those players. So there's something not happening. I always say about circuits not connecting and stuff like that, but there is something wrong at Celtic just now. You can see it certainly domestically, as you said. They got the wee fill-up in midweek with the game, which you labelled a dead rubber. Depends what way you look at it. But, the fans that turned up today were short-changed big time, Ryan. I include yourself in that.
There's still no place I would rather be. I'd rather be watching the game at Celtic Park than anywhere else. But at the same time, it was a very toxic atmosphere. There was lots of shouting. There was an apathy before the game as well. It didn't feel like a big game against Hearts. Is like every game against Hearts is big. Celtic v Hearts is one of these sort of unspoken rivalries between the two sides. It should always be a big game, a game that all the fans and supporters were up for. There was certainly one section of supporters that were up for it, and they were the Hearts fans that were singing, and they went into ballistics when they scored twice. I was reading some quotes from people say.
Sorry, I tell you what, I know a lot of people have got a downer on it, but the man that's planted the header, the first header, it's a superb header, but he's walked away from two defenders.
I don't understand. There's two people that are marking. There's two people that are marking the one player.
And again, set-piece negligence, set-piece frailty, vulnerability, say what you like. Any ball getting put in the mixer, as they say, is causing consternation for Celtic. But I tell you what, Shankland buried that header. And if anybody thinks that guy couldn't score goals for Celtic, then I'm afraid we'll just have to agree to disagree.
He's a better option than O would be. So
correct.
I think that
at this moment in time, he's a better option than Kyogo at this moment in time, isn't he? Because he's got.
But then again, he would probably regress. He would regress in this team because he wouldn't get the service that. Kyogo has regressed. I think he's been one of the biggest casualties of Brendan Rodgers coming to the club, and it sounds quite morbid saying that, but
Ryan,
look at Kyogo's numbers this season.
But we've been banging on about it. Why? He doesn't play any other way.
No.
You've just got to get the ball in those areas and where he'll score and where he'll do the most damage. I can't understand it. And, and I'm not telling Brendan Rodgers how to do his job, but how long have I been talking about him? Just play him as an out-and-out striker. He doesn't need to do anything else because he's not effective anywhere else. So, and I get, but I watched a striker today bury a header after 14 minutes.
It was a phenomenal header. And
I watched my team struggle, and I thought, after that goal, I just thought this team don't have it in them to come back, And we've cut Rodgers a lot of slack, I think, personally, on this programme, on this briefing, since he came back, and we have labelled him an elite level manager and said all of those things. Still stand by those things, but I think on days like today, he has to carry the can. Him for his team selection, and also those players for just not turning up. And I think he singled out Callum McGregor as the only role model in the team today. He said that he played a captain's part because he was the one that drove them forward and tried to inspire. Again, we all see things differently, don't we? So
yeah, I don't know what Rodgers has seen today, because the regression in Callum McGregor's game over the past 4 or 5 months or so, you could probably count with one hand the amount of good performances or outstanding performances the captain has had. I don't understand that. It was just as bad as the rest of the players today.
So let's take that as a rule of thumb. Greg Taylor regressed. Alistair Johnson regressed. Callum McGregor regressed. Kyogo regressed. Is that fair enough to say?
The only player that's progressed is Matt O'Reilly and
Right.
potentially Liam Scales because he's been getting game time.
So that's 4 players in your team who you, off the top of your head, have regressed. Joe Hart, you could maybe throw him in as well. Now,
I think that's just natural regression.
Yeah, right, okay. So I would just say you could maybe throw him in. So why has that happened? Who's that down to? Is that down to the players? Is it down to the manager? Is it down to the tactics? Is it, so I think that you are reaching the stage where you have to ask those questions now. And
yeah, absolutely.
It's okay saying, the bigger picture, sack the board and blame the board. Yeah, they have to carry the cat because they sat there at that AGM. They were as smug as anything, making jokes, and everything was hunky dory. That's what happens. You get a belt in the mush and a slap in the kisser when you start acting like that. And this has to jolt them into some kind of reality. Celtic are now in a title race. Rangers win their 2 games in the hand, they'll go top of the table. And they've also got a chance of coming to Celtic Park and turning you over on December the 30th. It's a fact. You have to face that, without fans or not. And and you better believe that they'll be up for it big time in order to do a number on you. You're going to have to match that. And at this moment in time, I know there's 3 games to go before Celtic play Rangers, is that right? Or 2 anyway, certainly.
Who's to say Celtic will win those games?
Well, correct.
At this point in time.
And so you're going to come in, so Rangers are going to come to Celtic Park and try and do a number on you and be hungrier than you and fight like you. You're going to have to match that. Do you see Celtic being able to match that at this minute in time?
At this minute in time?
No.
Rangers are favourite for that game and they're favourites for the league at the moment as well. And on current showing, the way the trajectory is going between Celtic and Rangers at the moment, Rangers could win 3 trophies this season. I mean, I think it's quite... And that's the reality. Rangers are in 3 competitions. They're in a cup final tomorrow, but Celtic get knocked out of the first opportunity. Celtic are going to need to get their act together, or this season could really, take a nosedive, even more so than it has done already. The other side of the city are winning games. Celtic aren't winning games.
Yeah.
And that's a problem.
Yeah, of course. I agree with that. I don't want to dwell too much on the other side of the city, but just know that game's looming large on December the 30th, a couple of weeks. I
get accused, sorry, just on Twitter as I was tweeting out the game, I was accused of being a bedwetter as to what was happening on the pitch. I said that, that they had 60 minutes to sort this out and potentially, maybe save the season was a bit heavy, but you can see what happens when these results happen. They catapult into worse things. If you're not careful, we've had the experience of seeing that a few years ago. Celtic were winning games in that season until they didn't, until they started dropping points.
At this minute, you're watching history repeat itself, aren't you? Or you think you're watching history repeat itself. Now, you can address this in January by giving the manager the funds to bring in quality players, which he's banged on about. But that whole team, there's an argument for saying that the whole team needs gutted, save 3 or 4 players, Ryan.
I think, and this is the point that I wanted to make as well, I think there's too many players there that are good enough for this team just now. But when you look in times gone by, they're good enough because of the way the team are playing at the moment. But if there was big standards at the club at the moment with regard to quality players, they wouldn't get a look in. You're looking at Greg Taylor, who's not good enough as a traditional fullback.
Nope.
He gets, again today in the second half, what was the first thing Hearts did? I've seen every team do this against Celtic. You put it into Greg Taylor's area. They sense there's a weakness there at left back due to his height, due to his lack of physicality. You could say Tony Ralston isn't good enough for this team either, and yet he was awarded with a 4-year deal. Yes, he endeavours, yes, he gives good effort, but that's a prerequisite as a Celtic player. They get paid X thousand amount of pounds a week to do that. Turnbull, I don't think Turnbull will play again for Celtic, if I'm being honest with you. With 6 months left in his deal, and hooked at half time. How many times has he been hooked at half time due to not putting in a good performance? I doubt we'll see Turnbull again in a Celtic shirt. I think he will leave in January.
I think Turnbull, like Mikey's had enough chances, hasn't he?
Yeah, I think that was Mikey Johnson's last game as well.
Yeah, patience is wearing thin with the likes of Turnbull, which is maybe why there's no rush to tie any of them down on extended deals. So
at the moment, Turnbull's playing for himself. He's playing for his next move because he's not signed a new deal. He knows that he'll be out the club in either January or the summer. In fact, he's not signed a new deal. It will be playing on his head. It would be playing in his mind, the fact that he probably will be somewhere different if he's not signed a new deal. If there's been a deal that's been presented to him, that we don't know the ins and outs of that. He's just playing for himself at the moment. How can you ask a player to get the team out of a rut like today was, when you don't even know where he's going to be next season or even next month?
I think you couldn't ask any of those players to dig Celtic out of a rut today. Nobody was prepared to step up to the plate. See, in years gone by, if you went down 2-0 to Hearts at Tynecastle or at Celtic Park, you would have stormed the Bastille and brought it back and won. You would have had faith in that Celtic team to do it. I remember the famous game at Tynecastle when Steve McManus scored twice. Remember Gordon Strachan's team, and they went to the death, right, and won it at the end. Just didn't see any of that today. It didn't even look like that. Anything like that would happen today. It was just a general malaise and a kind of acceptance of their fate. A bit like last week at Rugby Park when the equaliser went in. I thought there was an acceptance of their fate that they were going to lose the game.
And there's acceptance at 2-0 today, especially.
I saw it at 2-0 today as well. Palma has a chance, Kyogo has a chance. Should have scored both. Didn't. And that was it. There was nothing else.
One chance in particular, the one that put your laces through it, and there was a dereliction of duty there from Palma, unfortunately, to put his laces through that and put it in the back of the net. But as he wasn't the only one, Bernabei in the second half, instead of taking a first-time shot, he tries to cross it. That's him just passing the ball and in turn passing the responsibility to another player. That's players shirking from their responsibilities. And if there's no leaders there and no players willing to dig the team out of the hole that they found themselves in, and they want to pass it to other players instead, then Celtic have got problems.
Yeah. And, got some commenters saying, come on, guys, a positive mental attitude. We're always as positive as we can be on this programme, Nicola, but
there's nothing to be positive.
Nothing positive for me today.
It would be fake. It would be fake if there was positivity.
I'm the very man who always says glass half full, the eternal optimist, the dreamer. I'm also a cynical and humorous realist, and today was a slap in the chops, big time, because I don't think you saw it coming beforehand, but you certainly saw it coming when Shankland buries his head there after 14 minutes. Just shook my head and thought, it's going to be one of those days. And then when the second goal went in, that was it. I was texting you saying, where are we going with this? What are we focusing on? And we're instant analysis because this game's done. The two of us were like, okay, pick a subject, any subject, wasn't it? So
I had to talk about the atmosphere. And you and I really look forward to talking about individual performances and how well players do. But when you have to go to talking about the manager's feelings and the atmosphere, when you're scrambling about to find an instant analysis point, that tells you that all is not well within the Celtic camp and with the Celtic support as well. I don't like what's happening just now. I had that ominous feeling, or that ominous thought going into the game today. I couldn't shake it for whatever reason, and I was vindicated in my thoughts because it came true, and I don't take credit for it whatsoever because I'd much rather Celtic go and win games comfortably because then we've got more positive things to talk about. But I can't lie and say I didn't see it coming because unfortunately, when you look at the fixtures, Hearts at home, you could probably see it coming, and that's probably the most damning element of it.
Yeah, correct. You couldn't see it coming, but do you know what? I think I've always said we come on here over 600 joining us. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. I know you're having your say in the comments. We're just kind of having, I'll say here, and we'll try and flick some comments up. But you try and be as positive and as honest as possible. But I'm finding it difficult in terms of anything positive about that. And the protests today say it all, don't they? Basically, the Celtic fans are scunnered with lots and lots of things that happen at the club, and they're not happy with the manager, not happy with the players' performance, and they're certainly not happy with that board who play acted at the AGM. And wonder if they're smiling tonight. Yeah,
I was trying to spot with those pictures with the fans. And it seemed like a very heated conversation, maybe a bit of chanting towards the hierarchy. There was a fan that was giving them a bit of choice words to the fans in the main stand. I don't know if he was thrown out the ground, but he was certainly telling the chief executive and the other people how he was feeling. I think the Celtic players and the Celtic managers got it light, to be honest, because the ones that really would have put them into account, they would have held them to account, are those fans that aren't at the game today in the Green Brigade. I can only imagine what the response would have been from them. So I guess they got off lightly in that regard. I know there was a few fans clapping, and every right to your opinion in terms of clapping the team off. But I would have just went straight up the tunnel if I was the Celtic players. I think we just watched 90 minutes of pretty much rubbish. Just get
right.
up the.
I wanted to go straight up the tunnel, but we have to come on here, win, lose or draw, and speak. Michael Ross, just be honest. I'm being honest. I'm pretty sickened by what's happening. I've said here and I've seen on this that there is something wrong at the club at the minute, and but you can point fingers and say this and that until we actually get some answer. You're just wildly speculating, and I don't really like to wildly speculate. Try and use my insight and my kind of nous to sort of be as honest as I can. Lots of things not working, and I include the manager in that. There are lots of players underachieving, underperforming, recruitment. How long have we been talking about recruitment, Ryan, on this briefing? So if you're a regular watcher of this briefing, you'll know we've been banging on about recruitment. And the board, myself and Ryan were stunned at the kind of failure of the board to read the room at the AGM with their wisecracking and all that kind of stuff. So who's laughing now? Who's laughing tonight? It's not the Celtic board. It's not the Celtic fans. It's not Brendan Rodgers. It's not the Celtic players. It's not guys like us on this briefing coming on and having to dissect this and do it for a living and be as honest as they can about it and offer up some form of entertainment surrounding it as what it's meant to be and enjoyable. But so, being as honest as I can be, I would never tell Celtic supporters what to do. I speak for myself, and I speak from my own views as a Celtic supporter. Just happen to work in the media, but that's fair enough. That's what I do for a living. But I don't speak for other Celtic supporters. I agree with a lot of them on their thoughts. Myself and Ryan, it's pretty uncanny how much myself and Ryan agree down to team selection, just general chit chat when we're talking. It's pretty weird, isn't it? At times, what did he say? Fools seldom differ and all that, isn't it? You know what I mean?
A lack of atmosphere. Tony and I typed the same
Yeah.
message within seconds of each other. But I think it shows a united front in terms of the lack of atmosphere. Anybody could see. No, actually, there wasn't a lack of atmosphere today. That we were both proved wrong in that regard because there was a negative atmosphere. There was a toxic atmosphere today, which is worse than having no atmosphere. Or maybe it isn't, because then fans are. If there's no atmosphere, then fans aren't being passionate, and apathy is one of the worst things. But apathy did set in towards the end of that game. I think people were just staying in the stadium to keep warm because it's cold outside.
Yeah.
There was certain moments like when Bernabeu put the ball out of play. That was a signal for loads of people to just leave the stadium. It's just desperation at that point. I think a lot of people knew when it went 2-0, it was a tough ask. And then that first chance that Kyogo had in the second half, you've got to have things going for you in order to play your way into games, and he didn't get anywhere near it. How many times, by the way, have we seen that chance rolled to O, and O completely misses the placing of the ball completely? He just swings it mid-air. I think it's time we've got to be realistic and honest about certain players. I was starting to make that point with regard to Ralston, Taylor, etc. Maybe even Johnson at this point. Maybe he's just not at that higher level that we're talking about. Turnbull's there. O's there. I would say Mikey Johnson's there in terms of players that are just, unfortunately, they're not cutting it at the moment. And that's players that are in the starting lineup that are getting a game time. There's players that Celtic have signed in the summer that aren't even getting that. Kwon magically appeared on the bench. When's the next time we'll see him? In another 2 months, potentially, when he gets another bench appearance because somebody's injured. Paulo Bernardo is good enough for the Champions League, good enough to play 70 minutes. No minutes this afternoon when the team was looking for a bit of dig and fight in the midfield. He wasn't brought on. I thought that was going to be such an easy sub to make. Take Turnbull off and put Bernardo on, but they went with two up front. Now, I don't know. That hurts the team, because if you're taking off another midfielder and just going long, which is not Celtic's game whatsoever, you're taking off a midfielder, you're losing all creativity in the team, and just putting another body up there. That's desperate. It's very, very desperate.
I think the desperate sums up Celtic's play to that. I didn't notice Turnbull today. Didn't really notice Kyogo. Didn't notice Mikey Johnson. Didn't notice Lewis Palmer. O'Reilly as well. I try and cut O'Reilly some slack because he usually does something, but when he's off it, the team's very much off it now. And lots of people are talking about the manager in terms of what he's done with certain players and the team, and they use that phrase. And I've never really understood this phrase. Maybe it's just me, and lost the dressing room. I genuinely don't understand that phrase. I tell you what, I've lost my dressing room because the dogs are going mental. Do you hear that?
Yes, I do hear that.
Obviously, somebody delivering a parcel late at night. But I just think do managers really lose the dressing room? Do players genuinely go out and not perform for a manager? Do they just go out and deliberately not do what they've been asked to do? I think people can have bad days. I think Brendan touched upon it himself today. We said it's his job to motivate and inspire. Then do your job in that sense. Then if you're not motivating and inspiring them, then there has to be more introspection from Brendan Rodgers, more mea culpa. Is this me? And say to the guys, okay,
if he can't,
what is the problem here?
If he can't do that, then why is he at the club? Why did he return? If he cannot fulfil that task, he's been lauded as a motivator, as a manager. We've seen none of that in the past two domestic games. We've seen it a wee bit in the game against Feyenoord, but then again, there's some casualties at that as well, because the player that scored the winner against Feyenoord isn't even on the bench. What will that say to other players that are trying to get in that team? This is a guy that's made a big impact. I don't think Welsh's feelings would have been hurt if he wasn't named on the bench. in place of Lagerbielke, that might have a knock-on effect on other players. You know, I don't want to speculate too much. I like dealing with the cold, hard facts of things rather than rumours and speculation. But the treatment of that player could then spiral into a domino effect. There could be an anger, the fact that he wasn't named in the subs bench. It's honestly just speculation, but that's all we've got at the moment. I don't think it sets a good example
But
to a player. He might not be good enough, but you know,
that's
even having him on the bench.
That's my point about this kind of lost the dressing room stuff. You know, he didn't lose the dressing room on Wednesday night. You know, so it's kind of, I don't know, it's an easy fallback at times, isn't it? To say, oh, head's gone, they've gone. You know, I just know. Well, at least we think we know. We just know there's something not right at the club at this minute, and they are having, you know, they're having a mare. They're having an off time at the moment. Certainly domestically, they've picked a dreadful time to go off the boil and off form, with Rangers coming up in 2 weeks, and and blowing an 8-point lead at the top, and at this minute in time, blowing the title. Now, there's still plenty of time to get yourself back on your feet and address this, but it needs, I just think it needs a lot of honest talking, and from the manager as well. Come out and tell us about the Lagerbielke situation. What is his honest thoughts about that footballer? Does he rate him? Does he want him to go? Come out and tell us. I was hoping that somebody would have asked him that today, why he wasn't in the squad, or I would have thought it would have been one of the more kind of, smash the ball drive the ball down the fairway type questions. Put it on a tee and smack it by saying to him, no, the report about Gustav Lagerbielke, what's going on here? This guy was a hero the other night. How can you go from hero to not being in the team? At least explain that decision. And then from the answer, you deduce certain things, don't you? You're more interested in some things what's not said than what is said. But nobody thought of asking that question. Strangely. Well, not that I've seen so far from any of the media outlets. Maybe somebody did. I'm hoping.
They didn't ask about Iwata yesterday, so we had to guess about that until the team came out, and the fact that he was injured. We all assumed he was injured, but it's nice to have those confirmations. Especially when you're doing predicted 11s, which will be, I'm sure the predicted 11s for the next few weeks are going to be quite interesting. We might actually pick different teams, which could be quite good. There's no united opinion, I would say, with players that are coming into the team. But yeah, I think Celtic are in a bit of a mess just now. I think it's simple to say that.
I think going back to what you said the other week, I think that there's a crisis now domestically. It's a domestic crisis, isn't there? You were talking about a domestic crisis after what? When you?
Was it after the St Johnstone game?
Was it the St Johnstone game you were talking?
I don't think I called it a crisis, but
I think the word crisis was used. You said that if they lost to whatever, I think it would be constitute. I think you would constitute this as a mini crisis, then, wouldn't you?
This is a mini crisis, and
two back-to-back defeats.
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah, and it's got to be rectified quickly, one way or the other. Not one person is completely blameless in all of this. But I think, like yourself, I think it goes down to the manager for most of it. He's still got to, a tradesman will berate the tools that he's got to work with, but he has to work with these players. These are the cards that he's been dealt with until January. You don't just allow the team to drop points just because it's maybe not the players that you wanted. You've got to work it out. You've got to work with the equipment that you've been given. and at the moment it's not, the equipment isn't working for whatever reason. So the blame then goes back to the person in charge. This run of games cannot continue to go on. There has to be a response against Livingston next week. I dread to think what would happen if there was not a response in that game against Livingston next week. Then I think more serious questions would need to be asked about certain positions in the team, both in the squad and in the managerial position. As much as I'm tempted to sort of have those conversations just now, you know, Celtic are still ahead in the league. I know Rangers have still got to win their games in hand that they've got. But, you know, you're getting perilously close to that conversation being valid and that conversation being, you know, almost respected in a way, because it's teetering onto a full blown crisis on the domestic scale. You know, so many disappointing results, and I'm going to take the League Cup into account as well. I'm going to take Europe into account. You know, there's failures in Europe, there's failures in the League Cup, and now there's failures domestically. It's not a great run, and something needs to be done to rectify it.
Well, we can't put up with the Jekyll and Hyde nature of Celtic this season. And is the answer simply arming the manager to the teeth with money in January? Is that the simple solution, Ryan?
I don't know if you can.
Well, I'm playing devil's advocate here. You know, is that the short term?
I think the point I'm trying to make, and I've maybe not put it across in the right way, is that if there is a problem in that, then it has to get rectified and sorted before it then affects the season as a whole. You know, there is still time now. If there is a rot in the dressing room, if there is a rot within the managerial position, there is time to rectify. You see on the other side of the city, you know, they were so many points behind, and now they've got a competent manager that knows how to win football matches and managed to turn it around. Yes, it's been coincided by the fact that Celtic have once again fallen asleep at the wheel, but you know, it's all ifs and buts at this point, isn't it? I think everybody's disappointed with the way that, well, not disappointed, angry with the way today turned out, especially given the fact that Celtic lost their last game in the League Two. You thought they would have a bit of a spring in their step after the Feyenoord game. But yeah, it's just that it's been a very, another bad day at the office, as we call it. There's been a lot of bad days at the office. There's hardly been any good days at the office when it comes down to performances and results, I think.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. It's been up and down this season, hasn't it, really? It's absolutely brutal performance today, let's be honest. And there has to be a marked improvement against Livingston. There has to be, or else the manager won't see out the 3 years, will he?
There's got to be a response. There's got to be a response against Livingston. Yeah.
The position will eventually become untenable, won't it? But I think the thing with that is that he would end up with a huge payoff, wouldn't he? I don't think the Celtic board would want to do that kind of stuff. You know, if he gets to Livingston, of course he's going to get to Livingston. I mean, there's knee-jerk stuff, isn't there, all the time? And, you know, the manager carries the can for performance today. He said himself it was his job to motivate and inspire, and that didn't happen today, and it was a passive performance. So, and he's issued an apology, so he's held his hand up to that, hasn't he? So, that's fair enough. But there has to be a response now moving forward. You know, there was a response when he read the Riot Act at Perth. There wasn't a response in the second half at Rugby Park, and there wasn't a response today against Hearts. So it ends now, doesn't it? There has to be a response, or else he won't be here. He won't get the 3 years that he said.
I think the goodwill, or any goodwill that he had with the Celtic support is not there anymore now. A lot of the eyes are on the manager at this point in time.
Yeah.
Because, you know, he has negatively orchestrated a collapse in the league with regard to the Motherwell game. That was a shocking result to lose that in the last minute or sort of during. I know there was quite a bit of injury time after the game, but to lose it in that timing, or not to lose it, or to lose a goal win and draw the game. I make the point that draws are like defeats in the league for Celtic.
But they are. So.
And then, the Kilmarnock game, they resigned themselves when they went one each. You knew it was coming, unfortunately, a game. And then today, there was just no fight whatsoever. There was no tempo, there was no aggression. It was just horseshoe stuff. It was a horseshoe, go one way and then back down the other. There was no tempo or anything whatsoever.
That's what surprised me more than most, Ryan. There was no fight. When it went to 2-0, Celtic teams in the past would have given you a barnstorming comeback. Nothing. And I didn't feel confident that they would do that. Big Dom, disagree, Dom. I don't think they're dead in the water. I think that's there's knee jerks and there's overreactions, and I think that's just probably an emotive response to what happened today. And I'm not saying beating Livingston will cure anything or make everything better, but they're going to have to, or else they'll be slowly but surely tossing the title. So there has to be some kind of positive response to the negative domestic performance that we've seen, as Ryan said, the Motherwell game, first half against Johnson, second half Rugby Park, today. That can't be allowed to go on. It has to be addressed, by manager and the players. And, the boardroom issues remain, and I don't think it's healthy. It's not good, and that atmosphere today is not healthy at all for anyone. And I know you want the Green Brigade back as soon as possible, don't you, Ryan?
Absolutely. Yeah. Because it's hurting the team. It's hurting performances on the pitch. The Green Brigade could have been that 12th man to get the crowd going, to keep them singing. They might have not made an impact today, but the fact is we'll never know because they weren't there. And you don't have that argument for or against. This sideshow that is happening off the park is getting translated to bad results on the park. It's hurting the team.
It's having an effect. It is, and that's what we hoped wouldn't happen. Big Dom, we will see. We'll see, Tony. We will see, Dom, and I'll be the first to say you called it. What day is it today? 16th of December. I'll pin that, Dom, and we'll see if Celtic were dead in the water from 16th of December onwards. I'll be the first to come back and clap and say you were right, Dom, and I'll big you up for that. Just a bit early.
What I will say
at the minute, Dom, but I'll be the first to come back and tell you, yep, you were right. So
what I will say is there is quite a few fans that have got that view. That's it's not exactly like an isolated view whatsoever. There are quite a few fans.
I'm not saying they're wrong. I'm just saying it's there's still half the season to go here. No, they're still top of the league by 5 points. Their rivals still have to win those 2 games in hand to go top. Their rivals still have to come to your ground on the 30th. And people are now taking that as read that Rangers are going to win that match. So there is time to address certain issues here. That's what I'm saying. The one being the title race as well. Still plenty of time to address that. So that's all I'm saying. I'm not having a go at Dom because I know lots of people are also thinking like Dom. So fine, we shall reconvene on that. We shall, and we will, as I always say to you, we will speak anon on that, Dom. You know what I mean? So I'm not having a go. I think it's a perfectly legitimate point to have. It's just not one that I share at this moment in time. Give me a couple of months, and I'll probably be in Dom's camp if the malaise continues. But it's just I always say it. I always say to people that watch this programme, it's result dependent, isn't it? Your weekend's determined by the result, and it puts you in one hell of a downer when your team don't win.
Mm-hmm. And at the same time, it's just football at the end of the day. And I would sort of relay that message into some of the comments that I'm seeing coming into the comment section. It's only football. It's not personal, and we don't need to make it personal in the comment section. It's just football at the end of the day. We're trying our best to discuss the game and everything around the game, and some comments are just quite abhorrent, to be honest. So yeah,
they're out of order and they know who they are, who are making them, so that's fine. But when you get personal, we reserve the right to block and hit those kind of buttons, but they come in very quickly. So sometimes, but yeah, I think we've built up a wonderful community here. In times like this, you get infiltrators, don't you? So, and as you see, some of the comments coming in, we're just doing our best to avoid them, as we say, and hit the block button as we go along. So, but these things happen. You can't please everybody, Ryan, can you?
Yeah, absolutely. But I think it's just coming from a place of disappointment. The fact that we're disappointed with the game. You know what's going to come with that. But Celtic have just got to lick their wounds, dust themselves down, and get ready for the game next week against Livingston. It's going to be a long old week until the next game comes around. That's the unfortunate reality. But they'll have time to think about how badly they got it wrong today. Hearts were well deserved winners on the day. They deserved their 3 points. They executed a game plan with precision, to be honest, and they were well deserving of their win. No complaints here whatsoever. But
no, I'm not complaining about. I thought Hearts were excellent today. Once they went 2 up, they had something to defend, and they did it well. They defended well. So yeah, and 2 cracking goals. I'll take my hat off to that. Shankland's header's brilliant. It buries it. I mean, what a header! And the free kick. Seen Stephen Kingsley do that before. When he lined it up, I did get that foreboding sense of doom because I thought Kingsley's going to be behind this, and sure enough, he buried it. So you take your hat off. They've executed a game plan and they've scored 2 cracking goals and won the match deservedly 2-0. So I think you have to praise the opposition when they do that as well, Ryan. So, and I have no problems saying that today. Had Celtic come back into that game and got anything from it, I would have said it was a bit of a travesty because I thought Hearts played quite well, I have to say. But
they executed the game plan.
Yeah.
They had more of a game plan than Celtic did today. And that's one of the reasons why they got the 3 points and deservedly so. But I think we've covered absolutely everything that we could cover about the game. The fact that we've got to 52 minutes talking about a 2-0 defeat says a lot about what the current feeling is with regards to the club, the players and the manager as well, to be fair. So yeah, I think we've covered absolutely everything.
And bearing in mind it's not easy to come on here and be as professional as possible. As you say, taking some verbal abuse in the comment section as well. It's you try and blank that out. That's when your professionalism kicks in, and as you say, at the end of the day, it's only football. It's some people need to get some perspective on that too, and it's not pleasant to read things that are coming down the side because your eyes are automatically attracted to that. And as I say, we're trying to build up the channel here and build up the community. And we've got a wonderful community in the Celtic Way, and we love you all dearly for that, guys that come in and regular contributors and commenters, and we appreciate everything that you do. And if you appreciate us, we ask you to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. Costs you £4 for 4 months for everything, access to everything that's written on the website, or £18 for a yearly subscription. We thank everybody that has done that, and we thank everybody that took up the Black Friday deal as well. And just hit that button, guys. www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. It's in the song lyrics, Ryan. Win, lose or draw, we'll come on here, we'll discuss it, won't we? Some days are better than others. Today was one of those days we just consigned to the history books in the bin. And you look on the bright side, Ryan, you can go home and watch the Strictly final or something like that. Is that what's on? I'm not sure. Is that?
You know more about that than me, Tony. I don't know.
Are you going to go out and drown the sorrows with a big sarsaparilla or something like that?
I mean, I'm off tomorrow and Monday, so we'll see.
Well, you enjoy your couple of days, but what we will say tomorrow, 3 till 4, we'll be taking part in the Celtic State of Mind charity weekender, won't we?
Mm-hmm.
So we'll be taking over the airwaves from 3 till 4. So if you want to come and join us on that, a worthy cause, they open it up to Celtic State of Mind, open it up to all other podcasts, and myself and Ryan will be the guest host from 3 till 4 tomorrow. Isn't that right, Ryan? Yes, I think that's the time.
Yeah, 3 till 4.
3 till 4, help raising money for a just cause as well. So if you're around tomorrow, 3 till 4, you'll see us on that. Guys, thanks for tuning in. It's not a great day at the office today, was it? Lots of people carrying the can for that. Supporters unhappy, Ryan. Yeah. In the words of the specials, people getting angry, as they say. But hey, there we go. Guys, take care. We'll be back on Monday. Say enjoy your weekend if you can, but I know that's not going to happen, is it? Because of today's result.
Result dependent, but yeah, but we'll dust ourselves down and talk about it in more detail on Monday and Tuesday.
Indeed. Guys, thanks a lot. 600 of you joined us, or over 600. We really, really do appreciate it. See you soon. Take care. Enjoy your weekend if you can.